Kevin Herter with the Atlanta Hawks, and you're listening to 3-Point Conversion.
NBA, it's time to talk about the two teams that we actually cover, but it's funny because you got one team trending up and one team trending down, and it's not the teams that you would think. It's the opposite, but we have none other than Mr. Danny Thompson, the 3-Point Conversion NBA insider who also covers the Charlotte Hornets. How are you doing today, sir?
Guys, it's a pleasure being on the show on a Saturday. You know, it's a beautiful day. What can I say?
Yes, it is. It's football, but we're talking NBA. Hey, so let's get to it, man. It came out yesterday. Came out early. Shout out to Chris Kirshner. He's a friend of the show. He wrote an article talking about John Collins and Trae Young, how they're not saying eye to eye, how John feels like Trae is not running the offense, or if it's not even just Trae, but just the offense is not running like it should be, like he thinks it should be, with, I guess, Trae hoisting up shots or just not moving the ball fast enough and moving it around. So it was a lot of ruckus going on. Then Trae came back and talked about how if you all have been in an NBA film room before or team film room, you're going to have those times where you voice your opinions, you say what you say and all of that. Okay, good cover-up, and it might be, but yeah, still, Trae, you were salty, bruh. It seemed like he was salty because we saw him that game against the Charlotte Hornets on, what was that, Wednesday?
Yep.
Yeah, on Wednesday, he only had 7 points. He only took, what, three-pointers, attempts, and he
7 shots total. It was a horrible day for him.
Yeah, he just didn't seem right. So my question is, should there be any panic or worry with what's going on in Atlanta?
The reason why this is a story is because John Collins is a potential free agent in the offseason. I think if John Collins and the Hawks would have had an extension put in place, this doesn't really get reported. And I think Chris did a great job of the article. For those who have The Athletic, it's a great article to read. It's the fact of one thing that people aren't mentioning is the fact of the conversation that Trae Young had with Clint Capella as well, too, where Capella took Trae Young to the side and said, hey, listen, you can't do some of the things that you're doing because it's very James Harden-like. And I think for Trae, the moment is, yes, this is a totally different team than what you've had to use the last 2 years. You got to get everybody else involved. We all know how good John Collins is. We know how good Bogdanovich is. We know what Clint Capella can do in the pick and roll. I think it's only a big story because of Collins' free agency. If you've been in film rooms before, heard the stories, yeah, guys don't. They get into it all the time. You know, you go back and look at the other players around the league. So I don't take too much into it, but I think if there's more fire coming from it, it would be that they're not winning. Because if they're winning, we wouldn't have this problem.
No, I definitely agree. I definitely agree. And I think that I don't even think John Collins is coming from a place where it's about his stats and everything. Because John's just not that type of guy. And like you said, if they haven't read the story, you see it was a time where John, in that Charlotte game, John went over to him, put his arm around Trae, hit him on the chest like, hey, it was cool. You know, now Trae walked off and didn't say anything. But, I mean, it's just, you know.
Yeah.
I think it'll be straight now. I really do. So, let me ask you this. The Hawks have lost 3 in a row to teams that they should have won or you expect them to win. Charlotte, Cleveland, and the Knicks. Even though the Knicks been playing pretty well. But why do you think the Hawks are having problems on the court? You think it's because of what we just talked about, or what is it?
I still think it's still trying to find their way. You know, Atlanta are not full strength. Rajon Rondo's out again. Gallinari, I think, only played the first game of the season, and he hasn't been healthy. Bogdanovich is fighting an injury. Chris Dunn hasn't seen the floor. We're still playing. Atlanta's still playing with a lot of the similar parts they had, but they're not all at full strength right now. I think it's still early in the season, and Atlanta, like Charlotte, like the teams that didn't play the bubble, they were out for 9 months. So if you take away the 2 weeks they had to play together in September, October, they're still in that early season mode. If this was, I would say if this was like February, March, and they're still playing like this, I'd be concerned. But we're only 9-10 games into the season. Give it time.
Okay.
It'll all work itself out. So give it time.
Right. Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Now, with the Hornets, I mean, we see Devontae Graham still having issues shooting. He came big last night at the end, but he's still having, problems shooting or whatever, his percentage. Meanwhile, LaMelo Ball nearly gets a triple-double, one assist shy of a triple-double. When does he start? Does he start now? Should he start? Why isn't he starting, Danny? What's going on? This is what Hornet fans want to know. Why isn't he starting? I got so many emails and messages yesterday from people I don't know cussing me out. Why is he not in the game? Why did he take him out? What? Please answer, man. Tell me and tell them.
Well, I think when you look at the Hornets right now, first off, they won the last 2 games. Okay, they're now 4-5. So Coach James Borrego is not going to change the starting line if they're winning. Mm-hmm. The one thing Charlotte has had an issue with starting the season, they're the worst, second worst in the NBA in first quarter scoring. Okay, and what does that mean? Why is LaMelo not starting line if they're struggling? LaMelo brings energy off the second unit. He makes Miles Bridges a better player, and in turn, LaMelo played 26 minutes last night. What people started to see was LaMelo was playing in crunch time last night. It's not all about how you start; it's about how you finish. At this point, Devontae Graham is still. He has equity enough to fight his way out of the shooting slump. Okay, we saw last night, he only shot 5 of 13, but Raphael, he gave you 17 points. He had 6 rebounds. He had 8 assists last night. So last night he contributed. He contributed the other night against Atlanta. He had 15 points, including, he wasn't shooting well, but the shots he hit down the stretch helped the team win the game. Devontae has earned equity when it comes to getting out of the shooting slump. Devontae, for as many threes he hit last year, only shot 38% from the floor. So we're not going to sit here and say he is one of the best shooters in the league. He's a high volume shooter that has to have a lot of usage to be effective. Like Atlanta, it's going to take time. Hornets fans, LaMelo Ball will be in the starting lineup. We all know it's going to happen eventually, but you don't have to rush the process. No reason to microwave it. He's been effective off the bench. Last night he had the 10 rebounds, but Raphael, he had 4 offensive rebounds last night. He led the team in offensive rebounding last night. He had 10 total. Led the game in rebounding last night. It's okay for him to come off the bench because he's just as effective coming off the bench as would be a starter. You don't want to send Devontae Graham to the bench if he's still having shooting issues. Let him gain his confidence back and then ease him back to the bench. That's all you have to do. Just give it time. Like Atlanta, Charlotte hasn't played since March of last year, and LaMelo and Gordon Hayward only joined the team in December. It's going to take time. You don't need to rush LaMelo when you have Rozier and Graham in the backcourt. He'll be on the bench. I think the first. Now, if we get to a major losing streak, I think Ball gets in the lineup at that point. But they're still winning. No changes need to be made.
All right, and speaking of that winning, why have they been so successful? Is it because they're sneaking up on teams, or are they catching teams at the right moment? We know, talked to Zion last night, and Zion was saying that defensively, and Coach was saying that defensively they just can't. They're not doing what they're supposed to do. They can't close the game out. Atlanta, you see what they're going through right now. Is even with Dallas was struggling. Are these 3 wins because of that? They're catching teams at the right time, or is it that Charlotte is actually doing the right things to win?
Well, you know what? A lot of the things that Charlotte didn't do last year, they're doing now. And I think, and the other part is, Raphael, is the fact of they found a closer. Nothing against Devontae Graham and Terry Rozier, but Gordon Hayward has been closing out games this year for Charlotte. Even going back to the Brooklyn game, where Hayward stepped up huge in that Brooklyn game. You saw what happened in the Atlanta game. He had the 25 in the first half, but he had, I think it was 11 to 14 in the fourth quarter against Atlanta. We saw last night against New Orleans. He had, I think, 20 of his 26 last night in the second half. Hayward has become the closer. So in close situations, a guy like Gordon Hayward creates his own shot, and I'm going to tell you, his mid-range game is phenomenal. His step back with that mid-range shot is almost money every time he shoots it. I think that the fact that Gordon Hayward's become a closer, and this team has had in second half, they play so much better in the second half defensively. We saw it last night. New Orleans did everything they wanted in the first quarter. They had 38 in the first quarter. But that third quarter, they only scored, I think, 24 in the third quarter. Charlotte's defense got better. They forced turnovers. New Orleans had 19 turnovers last night. And Charlotte, Raphael, had 26 points off second chances last night. So a combination of things that Charlotte didn't do last year, they're doing now. And they're doing it by playing small. They out-small balled the Pelicans last night with Zion in the post last night. That's an incredible feat last night.
Well, there you have it.